The first arch is the proximal transverse arch. It is a very rigid structure at the base of your hand, right over the carpal tunnel area. When you make a volar splint and you don't take into account this little divot here, you might put excessive pressure on the median nerve underneath. The next arch is the distal transverse arch. This is a very mobile part of the hand as the MCP heads flex around objects. It is an important landmark for the splinting on the dorsum of the hand. Notice that it is more mobile on the ulnar digit side than it is on the radial digit side. Now let's review briefly the steps to splint fabrication. We're going to begin with a good pattern or a design, and I am going to show you that right here. This is our design for a wrist cock-up splint. We have drawn it on a paper towel or directly onto the splinting material. I did that, cut it out. I put it on my splinting material, and I've marked here both with my yellow marker, but in order for you to see it, I've marked it with a black marker or a Sharpie, which you would not want to use with your patients because it will leave marks on the finished splint, and we want to make our splint as clean as possible. So now that I've marked the design on my splint, I can not heat it up until I've slightly heated, I cannot cut it out until I've slightly heated up the material in order to make it easier for me to cut. So I'll put it into my splint pan and let it heat up briefly. Your patient should be sitting with their elbows supported on the table, their wrist in a comfortable position of extension. We are going to anchor the material around the thumb and pull towards ourselves. So when it's warm enough, you can tell because it turns kind of transparent, and I'm lifting it up with the spatula with one corner and then the opposite corner, so I always have two hands. And I get rid of some of this extra heat by getting rid of the water on a towel, but always using two hands. I take the material and drape it over my patient's arm, anchor their thumb through the hole, and then I'm going to pinch towards me well above the metacarpal heads. Just pinch. Then I'm going to take the two corners and really pull down to get my length on the forearm, and I'm going to pinch on the ulnar side closest to me. So you can see how much I really stretch that material. Then I'm taking two hands on both sides of the forearm and the wrist and pulling again, stretching the material so it really conforms on the radial side. You don't want to have your hands on the radial side except to stretch the material down, because if you squeeze to get rid of some of that excess material, you will create wrinkles, and wrinkles cause pressure. So once I get this on, then you want to take your finger in the palm to mold the material around the thenar eminence and the arches to make it very supportive. And then it's already starting to cool. So now that I've got it in a good position, I'm going to let Nancy very carefully turn her hand around so you guys can see how it looks from both sides. Very nice.